Laura Branigan has mounted a comeback.
In 2004, Laura Branigan was planning the biggest comeback of her career. She was recording new music. She was performing again. Everything looked like it was finally turning around. But she kept getting headaches she couldn't explain. She brushed them off as stress. She had no idea a ticking bomb was growing inside her head. Her brother later said it could have been fixed with a simple scan. Instead, she died in her sleep at 52. The saddest part is what happened at her final concert. She sang a song about saying goodbye without knowing why. Laura Branigan came into the world on July 3, 1952, in Brewster, New York, and she grew up in a home where voices rose together long before she ever found her own. Her parents, Kathleen and James, filled the rooms with Irish songs, and her grandmother had studied opera back in Ireland, so music floated around her like part of the air. She was the fourth of 5 children, living in a close Catholic family that prayed together, ate together, and sang in harmonies at the dinner table. Even with all that sound around her, Laura stayed shy. She hid her voice from the outside world and saved it only for her family and church. Her parents separated when she was still young, and the quiet weight of that shaped her, pushing her toward a gentle kind of strength. Through those years, she never pictured stadiums or spotlights. She didn't even try out for talent shows until her final year of high school. And even then, she only stepped forward because a trusted voice nudged her. That trusted voice belonged to her music teacher, Gene Bissell. During her senior year at Byram Hills High School, he asked her to audition for the lead role in The Pajama Game. And the idea frightened her so much she refused at first. She couldn't imagine standing alone on a stage while people watched her. She agreed only if the audition happened in private. And when she finally opened her mouth, her classmates froze. Her teacher stared. That voice came out of her like it had been waiting for years. Winning the lead role gave her a feeling she later described as tremendous confidence and a new way of expressing herself. That performance changed something inside her. It opened a door she had been too scared to touch. Not long after that, she graduated in 1970 and moved to Manhattan to study at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She commuted in the beginning because the city felt dangerous to her, but every trip pulled her a little closer to the future she didn't fully believe she deserved. Everything shifted again in 1976, when she joined Leonard Cohen's European tour as a backup singer. She was 24, far from home, and suddenly performing in 55 concerts across 11 countries between April and July. It was a tour filled with long nights, rough travel, and tension in places touched by political unrest. The band played in war-scarred venues, and some cities faced protests and security alerts. Laura learned quickly how to adapt. She stood on stages big enough to swallow her, and in small clubs where the air felt tight with nerves. Those months hardened her in the best way. They taught her grit, taught her how to keep going when she was tired, and taught her what real pressure felt like. When she came back to New York, she carried the weight of that experience with her. It helped her decide she wanted more than backup harmonies. She wanted her own voice at the front of the stage. By 1977, she was back in the city and unsure of her next step. She waited tables, worked odd jobs, and auditioned whenever she could. The breaks came slowly. In 1979, she met manager Sid Bernstein, who helped her get in front of Amit Ertegun at Atlantic Records. At first, nothing happened. Producers ignored her. People doubted her. She kept singing anyway. That same year, she recorded a demo that finally made Ertegun pay attention. It led to a deal, even though Atlantic wasn't convinced she would ever become a commercial success. The gamble was huge and came after 3 other major labels had already rejected her. Before she signed, Leonard Cohen whispered, "She's got fire to the execs at Atlantic." And that tiny comment pushed the door open for her. Without that moment, her career might have ended before it even began. Her first singles came out in 1981. All Night With Me and Looking Out for #1 struggled and never broke into the top 40. The label grew impatient. People around her questioned whether she was worth the investment. Some even urged Atlantic to let her go. Producer Jack White believed in her, but even he knew the label's patience was thinning. She felt the pressure every day. She had the voice, but the songs weren't connecting. Before her third single, she stood dangerously close to being forgotten by the same industry she had fought so hard to enter. She didn't quit. She kept learning. She moved to Los Angeles to train with vocal coach Carlo Menotti, who called her a raw diamond. That comment carried her through long days of practice. She trained up to 8 hours a day, pushing her voice through exercises that sharpened her breath, her pitch, and her control. Menotti came from an opera background, and he pushed her further than anyone else ever had. Slowly, her range stretched across 4 octaves. Her sound grew stronger, richer, and unmistakable. When she stepped into the studio for Gloria in 1982, that training showed itself. Her voice didn't just carry a melody. It carried emotion. It carried drama. It carried power. Back in 1978, before fame entered her life, she met lawyer Larry Krutek at a St. Patrick's Day party in Manhattan. He was older, had children from a previous marriage, and offered a sense of stability she needed during those uncertain days. Their romance lasted only 9 months before they married on December 8, 1978. He helped her financially by covering her early demo costs. Those years were difficult. She faced rejection after rejection, but she kept going because she finally had someone who believed in her, even when she doubted herself. Her path stayed fragile for a long time. Before Atlantic signed her, 3 labels turned her away. Everything almost ended before it started. Leonard Cohen's whispered, "She's got fire," was more than a compliment. It became the thread that pulled her out of obscurity. That single moment kept her from being just another name on a list of forgotten hopefuls. She went from a near miss to a second chance, and that second chance changed everything. When she finally recorded Gloria for her debut album, she didn't just sing the Italian love song the way it was written, she transformed it. She and her team rewrote the lyrics into a darker story about a woman spiraling under pressure. The song no longer belonged to romance. It became a portrait of someone losing control. It questioned her choices. It showed her wrestling with herself. It hinted at moral dilemmas and whispered voices in her head. Laura wanted character, not sweetness, and that decision gave the song its sharp edge. Fans felt it. Producers were stunned. The darkness made the song unforgettable. Gloria exploded in 1982. It climbed the Billboard Hot 100 until it reached the #2 spot and stayed on the chart for 36 weeks, longer than any female solo artist at the time. It hit #1 in Canada and Australia and stayed in the UK top 40 for more than 20 weeks, peaking at #6. Her debut album reached #34 in the United States and sold more than 2 million copies its first year. Her voice filled radios, concerts, and TV screens, and the intensity of her live performances left fans dizzy. Many fainted from the sheer power of her vocals. The song earned her a Grammy nomination in 1983, marking her place in music history. Behind the success, the industry buzzed with drama. She had fought hard to reshape Gloria into something darker, even though the label warned her not to. When the demo leaked, it created a bidding war among record companies. Russell Mulcahy directed the music video with his signature style, pushing her image even further. Her live performances became legendary. Even Umberto Tozzi sued over the lyrical changes. But he lost, leaving her version as the one the world remembered. Decades later, in 2019, the St. Louis Blues revived the song as their Stanley Cup anthem, and the world felt her voice echo again. Laura Branigan's rise in 1983 moved with a kind of force that surprised even people who already believed in her. Her second album climbed to number 29 on the Billboard 200 and crossed 500,000 copies, turning it into a gold record. The singles carried the climb. Solitaire reached number 7, and How Am I Supposed to Live Without You reached number 12 before becoming a number 1 adult contemporary hit. What made this moment even more important was something hidden inside the credits. Solitaire became the breakout moment for a young songwriter named Diane Warren. How Am I Supposed to Live Without You became the first major hit for Michael Bolton as a writer. Laura's album outperformed her debut and helped prove that Gloria was not a one-time spark. Ti Amo became a cult favorite in Europe and kept her voice echoing in places far from home, even though it only touched number 55 in the United States. Her name spread everywhere, and her tone made her stand out. Touring pushed her fame even farther. She hit more than 100 cities in 1983, and the schedule tested every part of her. Most pop stars used tracks to save energy, but she insisted on a full band. She even brought her boyfriend, Tommy Bayokos, on drums and refused to settle for anything less. This choice caused clashes with venues that were not ready for a complete live setup. Sound checks took longer. Equipment needed more space. When a venue refused to allow a full sound check, she walked away rather than compromise. Fans loved the energy she brought to each night, but promoters called her difficult, and the word diva began to follow her, even though she only wanted authenticity. Her shows kept their fire because she refused to trade real music for convenience. During this same period, her voice carried her into Grammy conversations. After Gloria earned her a nomination at the 25th Annual Grammy Awards in early 1983, people expected her name to appear again. She worked closely with Michael Bolton on emotional ballads like How Am I Supposed to Live Without You and I Found Someone, and the industry waited for the next nod, but nothing came. Melissa Manchester won the major award instead, and some insiders whispered that Laura's label pushed her more toward dance tracks than ballads, which might have hurt her chances with conservative Grammy voters. She found herself caught between the two worlds she had created, the upbeat songs that filled dance floors and the ballads that opened her up emotionally. The split made it hard for people to place her, and it left her in a strange space within pop music. Then came the Solid Gold controversy. In 1983, after months of intense touring, her voice began to strain. When she performed on the show, some viewers claimed she was lip-syncing. The rumors spread fast and shook her reputation because she had always prided herself on singing live. She responded by stripping everything back and performing unplugged sets so people could hear her real voice without any layers hiding it. Her honesty gained respect, but the moment left a mark that followed her for years. It also exposed the heavy expectations placed on pop stars who were supposed to be perfect every time they stepped on stage or in front of a camera. Internationally, her fame exploded even more. Branigan 2 hit number 1 in Germany and Canada, and her tours there sold out instantly. Australia turned into something wilder when fan riots broke out, and the police had to step in to control the crowds. The press called her the Scream Queen of the 80s because of the overwhelming reaction she inspired. She toured across continents, filling venues in Europe, South America, Asia, and Africa. Her voice moved across borders in a way that few American pop artists managed at the time, and that wave lifted her into global superstardom. Then another wave hit, when her video for Self-Control stirred up a storm. William Friedkin directed it, the same man behind The Exorcist and The French Connection. The story in the video followed a masked stranger entering her room and weaving through dreamlike scenes with dancers whose movements suggested temptation and danger. When networks saw the first version in April 1984, they refused to air it. They said it was too sexual and too violent. Laura later admitted that the sensuality came from within her, but the label panicked and ordered edits. The most controversial part involved a choreographed sequence that looked like an orgy with professional dancers. It was removed before anyone could see it. The censorship frustrated her, but instead of burying the song, the scandal fueled curiosity. The song reached number 4 in the United States, and millions more discovered her voice. The sales kept climbing. Self-Control became her second biggest hit and sold more than 5 million copies worldwide. The album peaked at number 23 in the United States and topped charts in Canada and Germany. Fans wanted to hear the song that caused trouble. The Lucky One reached number 20, and Spanish Eddie landed at number 40. The album became one of the biggest sellers of 1984, and the buzz around the band video pushed its momentum even further. In the middle of all this attention, the pace caught up with her. During her Self-Control tour in 1984, she took on more than 50 concerts in 3 months. She rehearsed constantly and slept very little. In one show, the exhaustion hit her so hard that she fainted on stage. Her team rushed her off, and the moment shocked the audience. She later said the wild party culture of the 80s made it harder for her to pace herself, and she pushed too far, trying to satisfy everyone who came to see her. She recovered quickly and continued the tour, but that collapse reminded people how much pressure rested on her shoulders. Behind the scenes, her choices caused more conflict. She refused offers from big producers who had worked with artists like Janet Jackson because she wanted to control her sound. When the Self-Control video was banned, Atlantic Records demanded reshoots that cost around $500,000. Laura argued, fought, and tried to keep the original vision intact, but she eventually agreed to edits because losing MTV airtime would damage the album. Even with the tension, she kept her artistic beliefs close and protected them the best she could. Her fame stretched into movies as well. Flashdance in 1983 featured 2 of her songs, Imagination and Gloria. The soundtrack stayed at number 1 for 2 weeks and became one of the best-selling albums of the decade. The next year, she added Hot Night to the Ghostbusters soundtrack. Decades later, Gloria returned in the 2017 film I, Tonya, and reached a new generation. People even whispered that she was once considered for a James Bond theme before Duran Duran stepped in. These placements kept her music spreading across different media and cemented her status as a soundtrack favorite. Her film-linked songs grew, but her 1985 single Hold Me struggled. It peaked at number 82, while Spanish Eddie climbed to number 40 and became a club hit. 2 years later, she surprised fans even more when she sang in Spanish for the first time with Luis Miguel on Sin Hablar from his album released in 1987. The duet became a hit on Latin charts and showed a side of her that even longtime fans didn't expect. Awards still carried tension. After Gloria earned her a Grammy nomination, many believed she would win. But she lost to Pat Benatar, and the comparisons between them created a public rivalry. Critics pushed the narrative until the 2 singers avoided performing together. Laura tried to laugh it off in interviews, but the sting stayed with her because Gloria had stayed on the Hot 100 for 36 weeks and still lost. Her 1987 album Touch marked another shift. It peaked at number 87, far lower than her earlier records. Shattered Glass reached number 48 and found more love in dance spaces. Power of Love reached number 26 and reminded everyone of her range. Cry Wolf faded in the United States, but later caught attention when Stevie Nicks covered it. Even with the dip in numbers, critics praised Touch for its ambition and the way it blended different moods. Money poured in during her peak. She earned more than $10 million from her tours and records, making her one of the highest-paid pop stars of the 80s. In 1984, she stunned fans by buying a lakeside mansion in New York for about $1.5 million. It became her place of comfort until an accident years later when she fell from a ladder and injured herself. The house symbolized the height she reached and the risks that came with fame that rose fast and shone bright. Laura Branigan's story began to shift in 1990 when she released her self-titled album, and the moment it reached listeners, something felt different. The lead single Moonlight on Water barely touched number 59 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and slid even lower to number 143 on the ARIA chart in Australia. The album itself climbed only to number 133 on the Billboard 200. It was the lowest she had ever charted, and the drop stunned fans who remembered the fire she brought with Gloria and Self-Control in the 80s. As the numbers dipped, industry whispers grew louder. People said Atlantic Records had decided to let her go after 8 years, quietly closing the chapter that once looked unstoppable. Even her music video for Moonlight on Water couldn't find space on major channels. Critics tried to soften the blow by calling the album a sinfully fun popper. But those words couldn't change what was happening. A comeback never sparked, and listeners who once waited for her next hit were now wondering how a voice like hers could fall so far so fast. 3 years later came Over My Heart in 1993, and this album carried a different kind of weight. It was meant to show her heart, her emotion, her growth. Critics said they heard all that, yet the charts offered no support. It didn't place in the US at all and reached only number 151 in Australia. Grunge and alternative rock were taking over the airwaves, pushing voices like hers out of the spotlight. Radio stations were no longer playing soaring pop ballads. She brought collaborations from Gloria Estefan and Michael Bolton, but none of the singles found space on the Hot 100. For fans, this was the first time they saw her music receive almost no recognition, and the silence felt unreal. This album became a marker, the moment her long run as a pop star slipped away, leaving only faint steps behind her. She tried to step into something new in 2002 with Love, Janis, hoping that playing Janis Joplin off Broadway might open a door. She walked onto the stage ready to transform, but after 2 performances, she stepped back. She called it creative mismatches. Others said something in the production clashed with her soul. Around the same time, she released what would become her final single, a cover of Cher's I Found Someone. It reached only number 90, and even though she still carried the same power in her voice, the industry no longer made space for her. She had plans for a real comeback. She was recording again. She was trying again. But her sudden death in 2004 ended everything before she could see what might have grown from those last attempts. Fans were left stunned, wondering how a star so bright could slip out of sight so quietly. Looking back at her chart history, the silence after 1987 becomes even more striking. She had already built 3 top 40 albums and 10 Hot 100 singles, including 2 top 10 hits in the UK. Songs like Gloria and Self-Control once filled radio stations. Yet after 1987, her name faded fast. Her last top 40 hit was that same year, and her albums in the 90s could not find their way into the US charts at all. The sudden quiet felt unreal to those who remembered her voice dominating the air. By the late 90s, she had almost vanished from the mainstream, leaving behind a reminder of how quickly pop fame can be washed away. In 1994, life pulled her even further from music when her husband, Larry Krutek, was diagnosed with colon cancer at 59. Doctors said he had only months to live, but she refused to believe that. She stepped out of the industry instantly, even turning down a $1 million tour so she could stay beside him. She searched for herbal treatments and cared for him day and night. He survived for 2.5 years because she refused to let go, but he passed away on June 15, 1996. Through those years, she sold her jewelry and personal belongings to pay medical bills. She turned down every performance offer, even invitations to sing backup for Madonna. Her devotion was complete, and it left her drained and broken once the fight was over. After Larry's death, she slipped into an 8-year silence that few understood at the time. She stopped recording and performing. She stayed inside her mansion so often that friends began calling it a grief prison. Therapy later revealed that she battled survivor's guilt. She believed she should have done more to save him and blamed herself for not finding a way. She tried dating again and spent time with her band's drummer, Tommy Bayokos. But her career no longer had the momentum it once carried. Even her closest friends rarely saw her. The bright stage presence she once had faded into a quiet life, marked by pain and memory. Just as she began to rebuild in early 2001, fate struck again. She was hanging wisteria outside her lakeside home in Westchester County and fell 10 feet from a ladder. Both femurs broke. The injuries kept her in physical therapy for 6 long months. She had finally decided to return to music. Yet this fall set everything back again. Even after rehab, she managed only 2 performances in Love, Janice before stepping away due to lingering pain. The accident felt symbolic, as if each time she tried to rise, the world pushed her down a little harder. Still, in 2002, she tried once more. She returned to Love, Janice, determined to reconnect with the stage. She performed twice, and audiences praised her power. But behind that applause, she clashed with producers about the script and how Janis Joplin's legacy was handled. She felt the story needed more honesty, more truth. When they didn't agree, she stepped away again. She kept recording demos, hoping a label would believe in her comeback, but none did. These performances became her final moment in the spotlight before her death 2 years later, leaving behind a question that never found an answer. In the months before she died, she began suffering from headaches, but she brushed them aside. She stayed active, kept dating Tommy, and even attended events with him. She seemed hopeful. She performed her final concert on July 16, 2004, at the Italia Unita Festival in Boston. Tommy walked with her to the stage, and she showed no signs of something deeper happening inside her body. Just weeks later, the aneurysm that had been silently growing took her life in her sleep. Her friends and fans could not believe it, because she had looked so alive when they last saw her. That concert in July carried a strange moment that fans still talk about. During her performance of Self-Control, a technical failure cut the sound. Instead of waiting, she stepped forward and began singing The Parting Glass a cappella. The Irish farewell song echoed through the silence and felt haunting in ways no one expected. The crowd didn't know then that the lyrics would soon take on a new meaning. She finished her set with her classics, from Solitaire to Gloria to Forever Young, and left the stage with the audience cheering. 40 days later, she was gone, and that spontaneous song suddenly felt like a soft goodbye she never knew she was giving. In her final months, she was also working on a cookbook and recording new tracks for her next album. The songs included fresh vocals for Self-Control 2004 and Gloria 2004, hoping to reintroduce her voice to a new generation. People close to her said she felt excited and ready to return. But her death on August 26, 2004, ended everything. The aneurysm had gone unnoticed for years. If it had been caught early, doctors said it could have been repaired. Her brother called it a ticking bomb that stayed silent until it was too late. She left peacefully, without pain. But the heartbreak came from knowing she could have lived much longer. Her autopsy made the truth painfully clear. The aneurysm was treatable. Her headaches were warnings, but she saw them as stress and kept going. A simple scan could have saved her. She passed quietly, without struggle. And the tragedy became not only her loss, but the reminder of how close she had been to surviving. Her last performances and her choice of The Parting Glass took on a new meaning after her death. Fans believed she somehow felt the weight of those final days, even if she didn't know why. The song echoed through her legacy like a final whisper, leaving behind a memory that still follows her story.